Hey guys, it's Kyle. Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be taking apart the front fairing on a Harley-Davidson Road Glide, otherwise known as the Shark Nose. This is a pretty simple process. I'll try to show you some tips and tricks along the way. As you look at the bike here, one of the first things we're going to do is remove these 4 Phillips screws that hold your windshield on. Once we get the windshield off, we're going to pull this wind deflector out underneath, and we'll come down to the actual fairing itself. And then on the fairing, you have 2 little T25 screws that hold this deflector on both sides. And then after you get those off, you have a 5/16 Allen that holds your turn signals on. And it is best to get those all loose before you move on to the next step, which would be we're going to reach in from the front here. Once we get the windshield and a deflector out, we can pop these grills out from the inside out. Some people tend to use a pick and stuff here. I don't like doing that because, you know, I don't want to take the finish off the speaker grill or run the risk of, you know, putting a little dent in the speaker grill or such. So it just makes it so much easier, and you'll see what I'm talking about once we get there. And then inside under both speaker grills, there's going to be a T30 hex, or Torx, I'm sorry. And then once those are out, you just got to unplug your turn signals and take the front of the fairing off. So let's get to it. All right, so moving over to the bike, one thing you'll want to do first is make sure you throw, you know, a towel or a blanket down on your front fender as well as your fuel tank when you're working. It's a lot easier to do this ahead of time than it is to, you know, accidentally chip your paint and then be very angry with yourself. So moving right along, with that being said, we're going to be taking out these 4 screws that hold the windshield on. Alright, so once the windshield is removed, we can start next by removing this vent housing. And this just pops right out, like so. Set that to the side. Then, like I said, next, it is easiest if you start with your T25 and work on both side wind deflectors. Alright, up next we're going to be popping the speaker housings out. So this is what I was talking about earlier. You can, if you just kind of take your hand right in here, you can just kind of pop it straight out. Like so. You just got 2 clips, and then that little clip that just kind of hooks into the side there. Set that one aside. You can come right over to this side, repeating the same steps. Pop that right out. Now this exposes both T30s on both sides of the bike. I would recommend, which is what I'm going to do, you come to these last, because it is much easier if you're working alone to kind of take the last Torx out and then lift the fairing off, as opposed to being down by the turn signals and then there's nothing else holding the fairing on. So next we're going to move to the turn signals and take the turn signals off. Another thing is to note, before you take the turn signals off, you have to come up here and unhook them. And that's just a little clip just like that. Push that down, unhook it, and do the same for this side. And now we can take the turn signals off. So moving right along, using your 3/16, I might have said 5/16 earlier, a 3/16. All right, now with the turn signal bolts out, you can come back to these T30s. Both T30s out, you can just lift off your fairing and just be very careful and make sure you don't damage your fairing. And when you set your fairing somewhere, just make sure it's on a soft spot. Just like that, now you have your fairing off. Pretty simple, guys, pretty simple. Alrighty guys, so now when you're ready to put your fairing back on, obviously it's easiest and best to do it with a two-person method, but you could do it yourself. So the first thing we're going to start with is putting your fairing back on, and then we're going to be starting with those T30 Torx. Alright, fairing back on. Start with your T30 Torx. And it's best as you put your fairing back on, all of your bolts you want to leave relatively loose until you get everything started. That way, in case you got to reposition your fairing, it just makes it a world of difference. And over here, put this T30 in. After those T30 Torxes are in, we're gonna now move to the turn signals, which is a 3/16 hex. Like I said, just leave everything loose for now. We'll come back and snug everything up once everything's all started. After those are in, once you move up, you can plug in your turn signals again on both sides. Now we can move and put on the wind deflector. Now moving right to the wind deflector, T25 again. Okay guys, now that everything's put back on with the wind deflectors and the turn signals and such, double check, make sure your turn signals are plugged back in, and now we can reinstall the air deflector. It's best if you just make sure it's slid in and just press down until it snaps in. That's all it is to it. And then at this point, you can go around, tighten everything up, and then we'll throw the windshield on. Alright guys, so once you go around and tighten everything up, now we can reinstall our speaker grills. Come over to this side. Snaps right in. And now we can throw our windshield on. Alright guys, and now you can just reinstall your windshield. Alrighty guys, and with that, your fairings reinstalled. So as always, thanks for watching today's video. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And we'll catch you guys on the next one. Peace.